In this video, having drained the oil from the engine and the tank compartment of the crankcase, I found that there was a thick layer of sludge in the bottom of the tank which I wanted to get out if I could, so I've come up with this device here. I thought of a long artist's paintbrush to begin with, but I've got this sort of metal rod bent round to 90 degrees at the end, and I've slid a tight fitting bit of rubber hose over the end of it to make a sort of harmless scraper out of it. And I'm scraping, there's like a ridge in there where a stud passes through, and you get a whole section which remains about at least quarter, if not nearly half an inch deep of sludge, even after everything's finally drained out of the drain plug hole. So what I'm doing is I'm scraping and dragging it over the ridge so it enters the part in front of the ridge. It's where that stud passes through, and it's coming out the drain hole. And I'm also using this heat gun to warm the bottom of the crankcase up a little, just to soften and free up and make more runny the sludgy deposit in the bottom. And bit by bit, as you can see, it's coming out. Now every little bit of that I can get out, it's not in there anymore to mix with the fresh oil when it goes in, is a bonus. And I reckon I may even get the rod up through that hole and drag more stuff out that way shortly. But as you can see, what I've got out so far, and I've only just started, is really worthwhile. And there's a load more coming through there, so I'm going to keep at it and hopefully get the bottom of that oil compartment pretty much totally clean. So if anybody wants to consider that tip in mind, bear that tip in mind. It might be more straightforward and a little less painful than removing the whole engine and splitting the crankcases to clean them out. I'm pretty sure it's going to do me a big favour here anyway. Really going well now. Stuff's warming up in there, getting more runny. I've already got quite a lot out there that otherwise wouldn't have come out, and it's real nasty sludgy stuff that was left in the bottom. And what I'll probably do is swill it out, put a bit of diesel in there and churn it up a bit and wash it through with some diesel to get absolutely everything I can out of there. But even what I've got so far wouldn't have come out ordinarily. Look at it, like a thick black porridge. So I'm very pleased to see all that coming out. One more look at it. It's coming out at a fair rate there now. Sorry about the bad light, but my rechargeable torch has just failed. But, very worthwhile job, I would say. So I've got the all that gooey residue in the bottom of the oil tank compartment, pretty warm now. I've had the heat gun going on it. And I just had an idea, and it seemed to have worked. I'm hoping to demonstrate it. I've refitted the oil filler neck loosely, temporarily, and I decided to give it a bit of mouth to mouth with the heat gun, so I got hot air and pressure going in there. Yeah, look at that. We're blowing even more of it out. Look. All this stuff, the stuff that would have been trapped in there if I just drained the oil, just removed the drain plug and let the oil run out. All this is in addition to that. I'm very happy with this lot that's coming out now. We'll have the inside of that oil tank compartment spotless in no time, I reckon. And I might just finish off by tying a bit of rag to the end of that rod that I was using and sort of wipe and scrape along the bottom, the floor of the oil tank compartment to get it pretty much spotlessly clean. And look at that, we've still got loads of it coming out there. Excellent. Worth bearing in mind, anyone that wants to do a full oil change or clean up on one of these. to add, one thing to bear in mind when doing something like this, before people go up in arms about it, I'll add this to my videos that went before this one, using the heat gun, is that oil does actually have a flash point. So I guess care should be taken not to let things get too hot in there, or you could have a crankcase explosion, which is not unheard of in marine diesel engines, but I wouldn't rule it out on something like this, doing what I've been doing here. So I think great care should be taken by anyone attempting to do what I've been doing here. So that's my sort of disclaimer. Don't go blowing yourselves to bits on my say-so, please, folks. Have a nice day. I'm just going to try and recap on a few things that have been going on here, and as I've progressed, I've made slight sort of alterations to what I've been doing. One of the main ones, hopefully it can be seen there, is I put a piece of wood under the drive side foot of the stand to tilt the machine over towards me a little on this side, so that I get better drainage from the oil drain hole there. I previously had the heat gun set up like that underneath the crankcase, underneath the oil tank part of the engine, obviously switched on to get this hot and soften up the gooey, almost jelly like residue that was stuck and trapped in the bottom of the oil tank compartment. Like I said earlier, there's a sort of bit of a hump in there where this stud passes through, and there's always a bit remains trapped there. So I've been working on freeing that up and getting it out. Here's the rod that I used initially when the oil filler neck was removed and I was working through the opening that that gave me, and you can see hopefully a bit of rubber hose that I've forced over the end of it there, just to sort of make something a little bit more efficient to sort of drag along the bottom of the oil tank compartment and pull that residue towards me and make it sort of overflow over the ridge and into this area and come out here. Since then I decided that if I refitted the filler neck, it was about the right sort of diameter for my heat gun to blow into the tank, blow hot air in, which also helps obviously keep the oil thinned, but also the air pressure that it created helped displace the residue and blow it out through the drain hole. So I'm going to finish up with pretty much everything removed from in there that would have otherwise remained there when fresh oil went in. And there we are, we can see, compare that to the size of my hand, perhaps that's a Chinese takeaway tub. Look at that, and it's already setting again. It's going like grease or jelly, that stuff, as it cools down in there. And I'd say we got a few hundred cc of that stuff there. Better out than in. You don't want that lot hanging around in there ready to mix with the fresh oil that goes into that engine. So that's out the way. But if anyone wants to try it, like I said before, just bear in mind that oil does have a flash point, and old oil usually has a lower flash point than fresh oil. So just be careful not to put too much heat in there, otherwise you could be greeted with a very loud pop and quite a surprise, and maybe even some damage. So be careful if you do try and do what I've been doing, but it certainly works. So I'll probably be doing it again. Here we are. Excuse the light. I know that the torch is interfering with how the camera's picking up the image, but hopefully we can see inside the oil tank there and see the yellow paint inside it. All nice and clean in there. There we are. And I finished it off. I gave it a little bit of a swill out with diesel with a slim paintbrush cable tied to the end of that rod that I've got, with a sort of 90-degree bend in the end of it, which makes a nice little hook which fits in there. I had the slim paintbrush cable tied to it, and I was able to sort of work around inside. Then I added a little bit of diesel in there and swilled it around, got it moving with the paintbrush. As I said earlier, I got the machine leaned over, I got that little bit of wood under the drive side foot of the centre stand just to make sure that anything and everything in there can drain out. There we are, shine a light in through where the filler neck goes. You can actually probably see some light through the drain hole there and more yellow paint on the inside. And I also tore some rag up into quite thin strips. Let's see if I can demonstrate that. There we are. What I did is I folded them halfway along and used this rod to push them inside there and sort of manipulate them and wipe out there. And I even managed to get some rag pushed up inside this drain hole, and again follow it with the rod and make sure that I wiped the whole sort of inside surface, or pretty much all of it. I'd say 90% of it anyway I've managed to reach, and got it clean and back to that yellow internal paint. So that's all ready when the time comes to have nice clean oil put in it. And like I say, I got certainly a couple hundred, if not more, cc's of horrible porridgey goo out the bottom of the tank there, so that's not there anymore to mix in with the fresh oil when it's put in. So it's about as clean inside there, almost as clean as if I totally dismantled the engine and split the crankcases to get at it. And I'm very happy with the result there. And if it helps anybody else, it's a bit of work. You've got to take the filler neck off, and you've got to lean the machine over on the stand to get it tilted over this way. Then you need something, you've got to get the rag in, but more importantly you've got to be able to get the rag out again. But using various basic simple implements, I've managed to get that pretty near spotlessly clean, and I'm very happy with that. And that's all ready to have fresh oil put in it and not be a concern anymore.